Hi and welcome to our channel Tax Companion. In this video, we are going to discuss about the major highlights of 48th GST Council meeting, which was held on 17 December 2022. So the first important highlight is that in case of a residential dwelling which is rented to a registered person and it is rented out in his personal capacity and not on account of business, no GST will be applicable. Earlier, there was a notification whereby a registered person, if he has rented out a property, he'll have to pay GST under RCM. But now, in this council meeting, they have decided that if a registered person in his own personal capacity, he's renting out a property, then if it is not on account of his business, then no GST will be applicable. It is a major relief for many proprietary concerns who came into the banner of GST because of the earlier notification. Then incentive paid to banks by government for the scheme of promotion of RuPay and debit cards, those kind of transactions will not be considered as a business income, and the amount paid will be considered as a subsidy, and hence it will not be taxable. Then another important highlight is few measures that is taken for facilitation of trade. The first one in this regard is decriminalization under GST. So the launching of prosecution under GST, the threshold limit was earlier 2 crores. Now it has been reduced to 1 crore, except in case of issuance of invoices without the supply of goods and services. Then the compounding amount is also reduced from 50 to 150% to 25 to 100%. They've also decided to decriminalize a few offences under Section 132 of CGST Act with respect to failure of supplying information, tampering of material evidences, etc. Another important recommendation of GST Council meeting is refund to registered person. So now there is no procedure of refund to a registered person. So in case of a buyer who has purchased a property and paid the GST amount, later the contract was cancelled and the time period for the supplier to issue a credit note has also expired. In that situation, the buyer is left with no choice other than bearing the GST amount. So now the council has recommended a procedure has to be framed for claim of refund by tax borne by unregistered buyers in case a contract or agreement is cancelled and the time period for issuance of the credit note by the concerned supplier is also over. So necessary circular will follow in this regard. Then the third important measure is to facilitate e-commerce for micro enterprises. So currently only a registered person can supply goods through an e-commerce operator. So in GST Council meeting, they have approved that unregistered suppliers and composition taxpayers can also make an interstate supply of goods through e-commerce operators subject to certain conditions. The Council has recommended the scheme may be implemented with effect from 1/1/2023. Para 7, 8A and 8B were inserted in Schedule 3 of CGST Act with effect from 1/2/2019 to keep certain activities like the supplies happening outside the taxable territory from one place of the taxable territory to another taxable territory, high sea sales, etc. out of the purview of GST. So in order to remove various ambiguities, the Council has recommended that these paras will be effective from 1/7/2017, not from 1/2/2019. Then another important recommendation is with respect to Rule 37(1), where it is clarified that reversal of input credit in case, so Rule 37(1) is reversal of input credit in case payment is not being made by within 180 days. So they have clarified that only proportionate amount, that is the amount that is not paid to the supplier, only that proportionate amount need to be reversed. They've also recommended to insert Rule 37A to prescribe a mechanism for reversal of input credit by a registered person in case of non-payment of tax by the supplier by a specified date and the manner of reavailment of credit. Council has also recommended the amendment of Rule 108 and 109, which deals with appeal, and that is the submission of certified copy of the order that is being appealed against and the issuance of the acknowledgement under the appellate authority. So they have recommended few amendments that will facilitate and ease of filing the appeal also. They've also come up with a insertion of Rule 109C and Form GST APL 1 or 101 or 03W that would facilitate withdrawal of the appeal up to a particular stage. So currently there is no provision for withdrawal of an appeal, and that is being considered in this GST Council meeting. So they have also recommended a circular that needs to be issued with respect to IBC proceedings and how statutory dues will be considered in case of a company that is going into IBC, and amendment of Form DRC 25 with respect to this. GST Council has also recommended that the Rule 12.3 of CGST rules need to be amended, which deals with the registration of registration of persons under Section 52 and 51, that is TDS and TCS, and they should also be given this. The rule should also provide for the procedure for cancellation of registration on their request. So that is also being recommended to be included in this GST Council meeting. GST Council has also recommended that a circular needs to be issued clarifying the place of supply of services in case of transport of goods outside India. So they have also recommended that Section 12 subsection 8 of IGST Act may be omitted. Section 12 subsection 8 of IGST Act pertains to the determination of place of supply where the goods are transported outside India and the recipient as well as the supplier is in India. In that situation also, it will be considered, the place of supply will be considered outside India. So that particular section is recommended to be omitted, and the confusion that is there in this particular area, a circular is to be issued to remove the confusion and provide more clarity on the place of supply in case of transportation of goods outside India. They've also recommended few circulars to be issued in the area of verification of input tax credit between 3B and 2A for the period 1718 to 1819, and redetermination of demand under Section 75, applicability of e-invoicing to various entities. So in this areas also circulars will be issued for providing more clarity. For streamlining compliances, the GST Council has recommended that Section 37, 39, 44 and 52 will be amended to restrict the filing of returns and statements up to 3 years from the due date of filing. They will not be able to file beyond 3 years. And GSTR 1 will also be amended to provide for reporting of details for supplies made through e-commerce operators. Then Rule 88C and Form DRC 01B is to be inserted in CGST Rules 2007, whereby an intimation will be given to the taxpayer in case there is a difference between GSTR 1 and 3B. And the taxpayer has to reply within the time period specified, either pay the liability or the taxpayer has to reply explaining the reasons for the difference. If the reply is not filed and the liability, and if the liability is not discharged, then they will not be allowed to file the further returns. An amendment in the definition of non-taxable online recipient is also proposed in order to reduce the interpretation and issues and litigations in respect to OIDAR services. OIDAR services means where the services are being rendered over internet and there is no direct contact between the supplier and recipient. So in respect of those OIDAR services also, the definition of non-taxable online recipient is being amended. So these are the important recommendations that is made by the GST Council And with respect to rate changes also, they have specified few rate changes, that is husk of pulses including chica and concentrates. It is reduced from 5% to nil. With respect to ethyl alcohol that is used in petrol is reduced from 18% to 5%. Then a higher tax rate of compensation cess. Higher tax rate of compensation cess 22 percentage is applicable to motor vehicles, that is which satisfies four conditions, that is it being an SUV having an engine capacity of 1500 cc, length exceeding 4000 mm, and a ground clearance of 170 mm and above. They have also recommended some relief measures with respect to heart scan pulses, which was earlier notified it to be 5%, and now it is being notified as nil rate. So these are the important recommendations of the GST Council meeting. We will wait for their circulars and notifications for further clarity on the proposals. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updates.